Over the past few months, I've had quite a few emails come in asking what is the most child seat friendly 3-row EV? Well, today we have the Rivian R1S and some Graco Classic Ride 50 child seats, so let's find out if the Rivian R1S is that vehicle. Over the past few months, I've also received a ton of emails asking specifically about the R1S and its third row and child seats. That's pretty logical because at over 200 inches long and having a very boxy profile, this is unquestionably one of the roomiest 3-row EVs available in North America. You could also look at something like a Cadillac Escalade. That Escalade IQ is even bigger than this. It's positively enormous, but oddly enough, its third row does not really look that much bigger than this. This is also currently on sale, and it's a lot less expensive. The upcoming Kia EV9, it's going to be a little bit bigger than this on the inside, but it's not going to be as off-road capable, offer the same kind of range, or the same kind of performance as the R1S. So before we jump inside, let's talk about the data panel for the R1S so you can see what's going on here. As you can see on your screen, all R1Ss are going to be 7-seat at the moment. There is no captain's chair version available yet, but we do have 4 latch anchors, which is kind of an interesting twist. So 2 in the third row, 2 in the middle row. As far as legroom goes, this is pretty similar to the Toyota Highlander. We have about 110 inches of combined legroom. You might be wondering, how does that happen when we have a vehicle that's longer than the Highlander? It all has to do with the long hood profile in the R1S, where we do find some additional cargo space. The reason I always talk about combined legroom, which is front row plus second row plus third row, should be pretty obvious, and that is because seats slide forward and backward. In 2-row vehicles, the front seats move forward and backward. In most, but not all 3 rows, the second row moves forward and backward. And that means you cannot look at those numbers in isolation, because where this seat is located will affect how much room you have back there in the wayback. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the child seats themselves. First, let's take a look at the single child seat in the center position. This is definitely a preferred location for a lot of parents because it means easier access to your child, and theoretically the middle is going to be one of the safer locations because you have more crumple zone, of course, right there. You can see that we have the top tether anchor anchored on there, and it is biting into the headrest a little bit, but that headrest is level with the seat backs. That's a nice touch. Another nice touch you'll notice over here is that you can move these headrests up and you can remove them. So unlike some Tesla models, you aren't going to have that big dent in the top of the headrest when you finally pull that child seat out and opt for a different seating position. Also a nice touch, you'll notice that the child seat does not interfere with the outboard seat belt anchors. It is a little tight because this bench is not the widest that I've seen, and that does present a few different problems. You should also know that this second row does not move in a manner that allows you to leave a child seat latch anchored into place and still easily access the third row. If I press that button, the seat, you really can't move it far enough forward actually to get that tilt slide mechanism to function if the child seat's properly latched into place, which leaves you just grabbing that bar at the bottom, which does allow you to slide the second row forward, but you'll notice over here that we don't have an enormous amount of room. It's only about 5 inches between the seat back and this pillar here. So you do have to be fairly skinny in order to actually be able to go back there into the third row. And if you put the child seat here in the middle, you should know that you can't tilt and slide that other side either. And that's simply due to the clearances involved with this particular child seat. So if I press the button over here on this 40% seat back side, you notice it's hitting the child seat right there, and you can't actually move that seat forward. On the other hand, the outboard seating positions are notably wider, so it's going to be easier to accommodate some of those larger child seats. And we do have 4 sets of latch anchors. This is somewhat unusual. All the outboard seating positions in the back have them, not just here in the second row, but also back here in the third row, which is surprising. Thanks to the width of the outboard seating position, I had no problem leaving a child seat anchored in that position and still tilting and sliding this 60% side of the seat. So if you'd rather have your child seat closer to the sidewalk when you parallel park, then that's going to be a really solid option. Also a solid option, interestingly, is going to be the third row because it's pretty roomy back here. Now, one word of caution, these second row seats are pretty heavy, so it's a little bit difficult to do this one-handed, as you can see right there. Children are definitely going to have a bit more of a problem flipping and folding that second row seat. Now, for simplicity's sake, I have not latch anchored this seat into the third row because these latch anchors are kind of a pain to get out. You can see that these third row seat headrests are not removable, and that's because of the way they fold. So if I pull this lever right here, you'll see that the headrest folds forward, so that way you can tuck that seat a little bit more easily into position, but there's still plenty of room to thread that top tether anchor through underneath that headrest. And if you wanted to fold the other side, there is enough room for most child seats to actually be folded there and still keep a child seat or a booster seat latch anchored into place right there on that one side. This is a really well-designed third row. You should also know that if your kids are on the taller side, but they still need a booster seat, there is lots of headroom back here. Just check that out. And that's thanks to this glass roof. Now, on the downside, there's no steel roof available. So if you live in the South and you're worried about heat exposure, you might want to put a reflective coating on this because it can get a little toasty in direct sunlight. Part of the reason I appreciate the roomy third row is because of this situation. I get asked frequently, can you put 2 child seats and an adult back here in the second row? I suppose you could. It would be a bit of a tight squeeze in this configuration. It would be a little bit easier if I was over here on the 40% side of the second row because I could push my body towards the side of the car and the glass there. But if you are interested in this seating arrangement because you want to normally get the kids in and out and you just needed an emergency seat to jam someone in the middle, then yes, you could do this for a while as long as someone was a little bit slimmer than I am as far as the horizontal width. My shoulders are definitely overlapping these child seats. Now, I really appreciate that roomy third row because if this is a regular occurrence for you rather than just an emergency thing, then you could put a child seat very comfortably back there into the third row. It's one of the reasons I do appreciate the adaptive air suspension in the R1S. It will lower itself down and make getting people in and out of that third row just a little bit easier. But in this situation, yes, with an asterisk, which is also how I would describe the 3 across child seat question. You can do it here as long as the child seats are on the narrow side. These are Graco Classic Ride 50 seats, so on the narrower side of average as far as forward-facing and convertible seats go. You can find narrower seats, and that would make that situation a little bit easier. There's an acceptable amount of room between the child seat and the side of the vehicle, the door, but the door handle is going to be a little bit tight as far as around the bottom of the child seat. I'm not too concerned about that because there is enough room for the side impact airbag to deploy here, and there's maybe about 4 inches of room between the side of the seat and the side of the door panel. It's really just down there around the armrest, which is actually below the seating area in the child seat. Not strictly child seat related, but a lot of our Facebook followers were asking about rear seat entertainment options. There's no integrated screen back here. I think that's just fine because instead we have a USB-C power port and a place to hang your tablet computer on both the driver and the front passenger seats. I think this is more versatile and more future-proof than an integrated system. A lot of folks were also asking about air vents. We have manually adjustable air vents here for the second row in the center console. There's a touchscreen to control the climate zones, USB-C charge ports down there, a 120-volt AC outlet on the bottom, and this screen can be locked from the front. Kind of an odd twist, these vents move side to side, but they don't adjust up and down. This is almost a separate climate control zone. You can adjust the fan speed and you can turn these off, but the temperature is linked to the other zones. There's no place to dock a tablet computer, but don't worry, third row passengers won't get bored because there is a USB-C power outlet on each side. With all 3 rows occupied, you might be wondering, is there room for anything else in the Rivian R1S? The answer is yes. You can actually put a 22-inch roller bag in this very upright position and still close the hatch because of the very vertical design of the R1S. We also get this handy tailgate design. So it's a combination hatch and tailgate, kind of like a Land Rover, only the tailgate portion is not powered. This is manual, and then the top part is powered. With a cargo area width of about 50 inches, you should have no problem fitting some of those larger strollers back here either. There are a ton of different standards out there for cargo area measurement. I suspect that the 17 cubic feet does not actually include this underfloor storage or the underfloor storage area, which is where the optional spare tire would go. That storage well under the floor is big enough that I can actually put this 22-inch roller bag completely under there, and you can still put the load floor back into place. Then, of course, we have the front trunk, which is the reason the R1S has that long hood profile. Under here, we have not quite as much storage room as you'll find in a Ford Lightning, but it's pretty close. This is a big and accommodating storage area. You can fit a 22-inch roller bag inside and some additional luggage next to it as well. Rivian puts the charge cable up here, but you could always relocate that to the back. This would be the perfect area to put things that are wet. Say if you have a day at the beach or you want to put some dirty diapers somewhere in the vehicle, you can do that in here and it's not going to smell up the rest of the R1S. That's definitely a solid practical touch. Let me know what you think about the R1S, and of course stay tuned for the full review, which is going to be happening on the channel pretty soon. Let me know, are you interested in an R1S? Do you want the off-road capability, the optional spare tire, etc.? All of that is really intriguing. Or are you interested in a little bit more room and probably a lower price tag? That would be the upcoming Kia EV9. Interestingly, both this and the EV9 offer significantly more room inside than a Tesla Model X. Let's take a look at the Model X's data panel now. You'll notice that the Model X has below average third row headroom and below average second row room. Also, the middle seat in the second row is definitely cramped because of the way the Falcon Wing doors function in that model. This is a much more normative SUV experience that happens to be electric. So if you're looking for a roomy family vehicle, this is definitely higher on my list than the Model X. Actually, it would be basically this and the EV9 probably tied, depending on your particular preferences for range, off-road capability, power level, etc. Then we would have the upcoming Volvo EX90. It is a little bit tighter in the third row because it's a smaller format vehicle all the way around, and the dimensions are very similar to the XC90 that's currently on sale right now. Way further down the list would be something like the Tesla Model Y, which has an emergency use third row, but more on that in the full video of the R1S. Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so down there at the bottom of your screen. And again, sound off if you're thinking about an R1S. Talk to you later.